Hey guys, it's Alec Torelli, professional poker player and coach. And in this video, we're going to discuss the 5 most amazing poker hands in history. Let's dive in.
The Finnish superstar, the pretty man, pretty boy, and the big winner today, Patrik Antoninus.
What a good time he had. And then about half an hour later, he was broke. We never saw him again.
And there it is, Phil Ivey in the cutoff seat with the hooks.
2000.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. And there's a couple of hands behind him.
Cool.
Race to 2, call of 2. And here comes Brian. Looks like a deep reach. And then a change of plan. He calls with the 8s.
No, it's not a good
Gives
play.
me that tingly feeling inside when these 3 players play a pot.
Ivey comes in with a $2,000 raise in the cutoff and gets called by Antoninus on the button and Townsend in the small blind. While Antoninus could make a case for re-raising here pre-flop to force out the blinds and isolate Ivey, he's not exactly the best player to pick on, so I'm certainly fine with a call. Townsend in the small blind with 8s has a clearer call as these mid-pairs play just fine from the blinds. We go 3 ways to the flop.
I prefer to use the bathroom and sneak some money under the table.
What a flop.
Oh, wow, this is it. What a flop here. We've got ace, ace, jack board here. Ivey has flopped, bottoms full, and Patrik Antoninus has flopped trip aces. And both these players are very deep. Each player has over $400,000.
16 back then. When I moved to Vegas in '93, the big game was
The
like
pot is only $12,000.
I'm willing to bet it's going to go up at some point in this hand.
That was the biggest game.
Probably a
and
good
the
assumption.
Chip came down for that game. And then it was a big deal when we kind of kicked it up to 8 and 16, and that was kind of the regular game.
15.
Patrik Antoninus re-raises, puts it to 15,000.
There were bigger games, weren't there? I mean,
Well,
You know, obviously, Patrik Antoninus cannot beat ace king, ace queen, or ace jack.
we're like the pros and the
Little does he know that Ivey's got
together on a regular
pocket
basis. They're
jacks.
always gonna be,
And the pot is $27,000. And Ivey's, his eyes are just lighting up here. Just trying to figure out, how do I maneuver this pot to make as much as I possibly can?
But I mean, you know, they used to
50
play.
total.
They were playing like 1-200.
And he is going to re-raise right away. He makes it 50 total.
He was just trying to launder money. Tipping
Phil
away.
Ivey not going to wait
I heard he
to
was
build
doing
this
that.
pot up.
midnight type.
Patrik Antoninus does have some outs here. He can catch an ace or a 10. And he is going to call this. And look at this pot.
On the flop, Ivey comes out firing 5,000, a 2/3 pot bet. Very standard continuation bet here as the pre-flop raiser with a full house. Things heat up when Antoninus makes it 15,000 to go, a play I like. I believe the book says this play could go either way, mixing it up between calling and raising, but that said, I specifically like raising here with ace 10 because we can get value from worse aces as well as pocket kings, queens, a jack, or even some draws. Also, with the history between these two legends and Antoninus known for his aggressive style and willingness to apply pressure, it makes sense to me to turn up the heat when he actually has a monster, especially after having just flatted pre-flop from the button. Townsend, of course, gets out of the way, and it's over to Ivey, who really can't go wrong here. Ivey opts to re-raise and make it 50,000, which, from a theory perspective, is a play I love. Jacks is the perfect hand to re-raise with for value, as containing no aces in Ivey's hand makes it more likely his opponent has an ace, which he can actually get value from. Patrik calls, which I believe he has to do, and let's take a turn.
Is already $107,000. The turn is the 5 of diamonds.
That's a great card for Phil. He can be pretty certain that Patrik's not re-raising him with ace 5.
Although, if you remember correctly, Antoninus did win a huge pot with ace 4 against Phil Ivey earlier.
$100,000.
And this is a huge bet here. Phil Ivey is making a $100,000 bet. Those are $25,000 chips. The pot is $207,000. $100,000 to Antoninus. And this is the exact reason Ivey rebought.
Well, that $100,000 bet is really going to confuse Patrik. He doesn't know whether he's up against an ace-king, an ace-queen. He tried to find out with the 15,000 bet.
Cool.
And look at this, Patrik Antoninus is going to call.
The 5 of diamonds rolls off and Ivey bets 100,000, close to pot. Betting this size makes sense here as his entire range will always want to bet big. If he has a hand for value, like Jack's full, he'll want to maximize it when his opponent has an ace. If he's bluffing, he'll want to apply lots of pressure to get draws and weaker aces to fold. Patrik is now in a tough spot, but I believe he has to call once more. Ivey is known for his aggression, and even against Jack's full, he still has 7 outs if he's wrong. Antoninus calls, and let's see a river.
It's a queen.
It's a queen. It changes nothing, and for once, Ivey has not gotten unlucky.
Might scare him a little, though, that queen.
Of course. Remember, right now,
they're all talking at the start of this hand. Now everyone's watching. This pot is 307,000, and it could be getting bigger.
Phil Ivey trying to think, how much can I bet here? This is an enormous pot. Phil Ivey, the master, trying to figure out exactly how to get the big call.
A decent sized bet from Ivey, and Patrik should be able to get away from the hand. There isn't really much he can beat here.
No, you're correct there. But the pot is $300,000. What about the human side of it? Can you really let $300,000 go?
He's got to decide what he wants to bet, and is he going to pass if he gets re-raised and puts 150,000 in there?
I think he's probably going to bet about 200,000 here, maybe even more. The pot is $300,000. Phil Ivey, an absolute master.
He might even just declare all in. He's sitting with about the pot size in front of him, around the 300,000 mark.
And could Phil Ivey get even in just one hand? Absolutely phenomenal poker. And what is Patrik Antoninus thinking right now, Gary? As he waits for Phil Ivey to make a bet.
He's probably trying to decide, what do I do if he bets? What do I do if he checks?
Phil Ivey, obviously really thinking this through. The wheels are turning.
He's gone back for the blacks.
Those are $25,000 each. This could really sort him out. And look at this. This is the bet. It's $225,000. Phil Ivey has just bet $225,000. This pot is over $500,000. It is actually $250,000. It's 12 black chips. The pot is $557,000. What do you do if you're Patrik Antoninus?
$557,000. The only thing he can really beat now is a bluff. He knows if Phil Ivey is re-raising him on the flop, a third bet, he should have ace-king, ace-queen, ace-jack, jacks full. But it's also got to be going through his mind that Phil Ivey is stuck, and he is stuck big. This could be his one chance to get out of it, to steal this pot. Is Patrik Antoninus going to make the call?
Ivey has a clear bet here on the end, hoping to get value from an ace. Once again, I like his close to pot size of $250,000 for the same reasons as I do on the turn. Regardless of his hand, he needs to continue telling the story, and a large bet size is the way to go. Patrik now is in an impossibly tough spot. Some people might say, well, Ivey can't be bluffing, this is an easy fold, but not only is it obvious to us who can see the cards, but you'll also have to remember these guys are playing poker on a different level. Patrik is likely thinking that he underrepresented his hand pre-flop by just calling. Furthermore, and this gets a little more advanced, Patrik almost never has a full house here. Ace-jack, ace-queen, and jacks would have almost certainly 3-bet pre-flop, leaving ace-5 suited as the only full house in Patrik's range. And there's only one combo of that, which is ace-5 of hearts. For more information on how to count combos, you can check out the membership at Conscious Poker by visiting consciouspoker.com. But for now, Patrik knows his range is vulnerable, but he also knows that Ivey knows this as well. So Patrik's probably thinking, well, if I fold here with ace-10, one of the best hands I can have, then I'm too easily exploited. This really could go either way. One can make the case for a call or a fold, which is why this hand is truly so amazing.
I call.
Cool.
He says call! This is a monster, and it is the hand that Phil Ivey has been waiting for. $807,000 pot.
Has to be lucky money in some way.
So they started heads-up play at hand 150. This is hand 181 of the final table.
Did you lose some money on that over-under of 100 hands against the Mickey?
I took the over.
We took the over, oh.
Oh yeah, as I said, I'm a pessimist, so I'm always going to predict that I'm going to be here for a very long time.
Mickey took under 100 for the final table?
He set the line at 100.
Wow, that's free money.
I think Mickey's still feeling guilty about the fact that he made me commentate for 6.5 hours on his heads-up battle in Copenhagen.
Chen makes a standard open on the button with 4 deuce suited to 200,000 on 40,000, 80,000 blinds, and Katai calls. Katai could make a case here for 3-betting with a suited ace, definitely a favorite to be the best hand, but I'm fine with calling as well. We go heads up, of course, to the flop.
And he tried to give it to me for saying that this is more interesting.
And when you raise pre, you're most of the time going to put in a little c-bet here. About half pot is pretty standard. Oh, excuse me, this was a 3-bet pot and then check to the button.
I thought Chen button raised and Katai defended. I don't think there was a 3-bet pre.
Oh, that's my mistake then.
Very standard flop play here with a continuation bet and a call. Let's take a turn.
It's calculated, but it's a pretty strong hand to 3-bet there pre, but he didn't, so now we're on the turn.
But he takes off a street with just ace high, which is likely to be good there on most of the time.
Isn't it going to bring him into a lot of tough spots because Chen...
The turn goes check, check. Again, totally standard by both players. But let's take a river where things get interesting.
Chen is known to be keep firing.
Only if Chen barrels again there, and that's kind of a tough spot, a tough card at least. The 9 of spades in the turn to keep barreling. It hits a lot of his range in terms of straights and making pairs of 9s. And he's never folding a jack, for example. And now it looks like he's deciding to bluff with his ace because there's a 4-card straight on the board. He figures Chen has some sort of piece of that, you know, like maybe has like a 7 or a 9 or a 10 at this point.
Yeah, because it would make sense for Chen to check back showdown value on the turn.
Right.
Katai now bets out 550,000, turning his hand into a bluff. I like this play here as there are a lot of hands which beat him that could potentially fold. Chen could have easily checked back the turn with any pair, hoping to get to showdown, and all of those one-pair hands are now in a tough spot on this river when faced with a bet. Katai is representing a straight here, and there are plenty of 8s in his range given the action. Well done. With close to the nut low, Chen has an easy fold. Or does he?
On the turn, you generally check back your medium strength hands and fire your weak and your strong hands. However, he had a really weak hand and basically shut down the turn.
Isn't it also likely for Chen to call down here with a 7 if he would have one, even though there's a very good,
I think it's
good
a
chance?
real tough call at the 7. I think that's what this bet is designed to take down, like a 7 or a 9 in this spot. How do you call here with a 7? You got to put Katai on a total random, just ace-high kind of float like he has. That's all you're really beating at this point. I think this would definitely blow Chen off the 7, but he's thinking about raising, obviously.
We've seen him done that before.
Yeah, make that huge all-in bluff with ace-high.
And whatever raise he decides to make here, if he does in fact raise, is going to work.
A reminder of chip denominations. Blues are 5, yellows 25, green and blacks 100,000 each. So those are raising chips.
This is really big. He's probably raised to about 1.2 or so, which is basically a click back here, a min raise. Because there's no reason to bet more. Because Katai either has a straight here or he has nothing in any regards. If he has nothing, if he doesn't have the straight, he can't call any raise.
It's actually just over 1.5 million.
Chen pulls the trigger and makes it 1.55 million. I'm fine with the occasional raise here from Chen, hoping that Katai is bluffing and will fold. That said, and I may be nitpicking a bit, but I think he could have got away with a slightly smaller size, say 1.2 million, as Katai will call the river with all of his 8s and fold with everything else. Since Katai will react the same regardless of Chen's sizing, it's just inefficient to raise big here. Over to Katai, who now has an easy fold, as both calling and raising are suicidal at this point. But then again, that's not what makes this poker hand so amazing.
Katai's chewing the t-shirt for comfort.
Obviously, Chen is just so polarized here. Either has an 8 or better, which would be like an 8-queen, or he has nothing. There's nothing in between here.
That thing's going to be covered in drool by the end of this heads-up battle.
Could it be a factor that the raise size is a little bit bigger, because then it's even less likely for Katai to think about even rebluffing?
Right, no, he can't rebluff here. Not in this. It's just, it would be the most ridiculous reship ever.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that if he would have clicked back...
Right, he'd be more... That's why he's doing it. But I think in either case, he'd be hard-pressed to continue here without an 8. I don't know. I'm surprised he's even thinking. I think he's just Hollywooding here. He can't continue here. No way. This is pretty sick if he does choose to continue and put in another raise.
What if he hero calls with ace high?
It would be weird because his line on the hand is he's bluffing and then he gets raised and now he kind of likes his hand because he knows that Chen's hand strength is so polarized. He's thinking either Chen has an 8 and a beat or my ace high is good here. So it doesn't make any sense for him to put in another raise because his ace high is good, or Chen's calling him off if he puts in another raise. So he's thinking about calling or folding at this point. Putting in another raise would make absolutely no sense at all. Would be a fantastic call when you take a line to bluff the river and end up calling the raise for value.
Hey, you think he's bluffing the river? Maybe he always thought ace high was good and it was a value bet.
He's betting to induce.
Yeah.
Do you think it's smart to get involved in this kind of leveling game in this stage of heads up?
I usually don't go this deep into it, and this many raises back and forth on the river as a bluff. Wow. Wow. That is the call of the day. That's just fantastic call. He must have some sick read on Andrew Chen right now.
I can say with confidence I wouldn't make this call, and I'm not even sure it's profitable long term, but I have to say, whenever a man makes an incredible call and he's right, you just have to give him credit. And that, my friends, was truly next level. If you like this video so far, I'd like to invite you to let us know by subscribing to this channel and turning on notifications. It's really the best way to support me in helping me to create content that's useful for you. New videos are coming out every week to help you take your poker game to that next level, and you can be the first to know when they come your way. Thanks guys, you're awesome. Let's dive back in. We're heads up at the 2016 Grand Poker Series at the Golden Nugget Casino in Las Vegas, where one of the most amazing poker hands I've ever seen went down.
Vinny Lima just calls on the button. Mike Camiso checks his option in the big, and Lima's going to flop an up and down straight draw. But he's going to have to face a bet from Camiso of 75,000 to see a turn. He does call.
An unconventional hand here so far. Lima limps the button, a play you don't see often in heads-up poker, but perhaps he was getting 3-bet too often, so he decided to mix up his strategy. On a 10-6-4 flop, Camiso takes the lead and fires out roughly 3/4 pot with no pair, no draw. Not a play I'm a huge fan of on a board like this against a button limp. Lima now could make a case for raising here with no showdown value and a decent draw, but opts to call instead, and we take a turn.
King of Spades changes nothing on the turn. Camiso still in the lead with Queen High. He's going to give up the betting lead though. Vinny Lima going to bet what looks to be 130,000. 140,000, excuse me. Mike Camiso is not going to go anywhere just yet.
A King of Spades rolls off and Camiso waves the white flag. Lima has a clear bet with decent equity and no chance of winning, and goes for half pot. Camiso, still with no pair, no draw, has a very clear fold, but maybe he's seeing something I don't, and he opts to call. Not sure what his plan is, but let's see a river and find out.
See if Vinny Lima has another river bluff in his arsenal. Looks like he does. And while we know that Mike Camiso has the best hand with Queen High, he can't know that. Looks like he's thinking this one through though.
The river comes a jack and Camiso once again checks. Lima now makes a pot-sized bet. This bet makes his range polarized, meaning he's likely to have a very strong hand or air. It's a play I like given the board texture. Since he's never betting a dry 10 for value, he's basically saying I have 2 pair here or I miss some kind of draw. Camiso now actually has a quite interesting decision. He beats all the missed straight draws, and there are many. 9-8, 9-7, 8-7, 7-5, 7-3, and 5-3 all could have played the hand this way. Camiso seems to have a read, and he knows those high cards are unlikely to have connected with his opponent because he just limped in preflop. But can he really pull the trigger here?
Trying to figure out what Vinny Lima has. Camiso led the flop. Lima just called. Then it went check, bet, call on the turn. And Camiso is now facing a 475,000 chip bet on the river. And I'll just say I've seen some stuff in tournament poker. I've very rarely seen a player correctly call with Queen High. I'll probably count those times that it's been the case on one hand. But it looks like Mike Camiso really is thinking this one through. Trying to wonder what Vinny Lima is up to across the table. And he's going to use a 60-second time token, and he's going to call correctly with queen high. Wow. Wow, and Vinny Lima can barely believe it.
What an unbelievable call. Again, not sure I could have made this one either, but hats off to Camiso. Before we dive into this next hand, I have a confession, and that is I'm not sure this is the second most amazing poker hand in history. In fact, it may not even be in the top 5. But seeing that this is my channel and I do have a poker training site where I teach others like yourself to crush it, you'll understand my predilection for including this one. All right, with that out of the way, let's set the stage. This hand goes down on the popular television show Poker Night in America, which is aired on CBS Sports. We're playing 25-50 with 100 straddle at the Turning Stone in upstate New York. We'd been filming for nearly 7 hours when the following hand went down.
He made a famous call in the national championship. He called it Jack High.
Right, and you know they just aired the WPT LA Poker Classic from this year.
Yeah.
And Claude also called with Jack High.
Happens. I mean, we all. I mean.
And he won. And he was
I was going to say.
at the final table.
As long as we fade that, then we're okay.
The more advanced you play, and the more you play, you'll notice that your bluffs, your value bets become. Your value bets get thinner. You bluff a little bit in different situations, and sometimes you make crazy calls with ace high, king high,
A couple months ago with Phil, we're at Philly for
where your opponent's got the absolute nuts or nothing.
he's gonna be in the Olympics. Yeah, he came back and just won.
Dentale makes a small raise to 250 and it gets called in 3 spots. Pretty standard. I look down at the beautiful offsuit 2-gapper in the big blind and opt to call. I talk more about my strategy for this in the Hand of the Day episode I did about this hand, which is linked below, but the short of it is, I'm confident in my post-flop game, and I want to be in there when there are other players to act behind me who give a lot of action. Also, I'm getting an amazing price, and as is often the case in poker, it comes down to the math. I call, and we go 5 ways to the flop.
Red Sox Net saying Joe called Negreanu with Jack High. I guess he's meaning that Joe called with Jack. Oh, he's saying the hand he busted Negreanu.
Right.
I don't know if he's really calling with Jack. He called with a gut shot and a flush draw.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's considered Jack High.
Hey, Jack High.
I think we're talking about river calls.
Right.
Red Sox, but he knows that. He's just messing around.
Anthony with a set of 7s here. Torelli with top pair. And I believe Dentale is open-ended. I think the flop is 9-7-5. Yeah. So Dentale had a pretty big flop here, open-ended with backdoor hearts. Torelli with top pair. Anthony with a set of 7s. And you mentioned Anthony desperate to win one big pot.
If he loses this one, it's a heartbreak because, I mean, he is at risk this hand because
I am so cheering for
Dentale's never folding.
I want the run out to be Jack 5.
Any official thing. But there's not too many official things that go down.
Jack 5, yeah, that would be the most pain for everyone.
It'd be awesome. Jack, a lot of money gets in there, then the 5. Bink.
It's no suit period as well. No suit.
Don't just call, Anthony. Please raise.
No, he's going to... Did he raise? Did he just
Please
call?
raise. Please raise. He didn't raise. Oh, man.
Come on, man. Build that pot.
Build the pot.
The flop comes down 9-7-5 rainbow, and I opt to bet 450 for half pot. I led because I want to protect my vulnerable hand against potential overcards in the event this gets checked around. And while each situation is unique, my logic in spots like these is often, my hand is strong enough to call a bet, so it's better to bet myself and gain the benefit of protection plus the value of getting called by worse hands that will check behind. Dentale calls with his open-ender, which I like. He doesn't want to risk getting blown off his hand by opening the door with a raise. Anthony, who was stuck big in the game and seemed a bit frustrated, overcalls here. Raising is of course fine by Anthony, but calling has merit too, most notably because it looks weak, especially given his image. Remember, you make money in poker by having your opponents think you have the opposite of what you do. Let's take a turn.
It's a cool bet.
Don't get checked around. Oh, that's terrible.
Dentale's going to check this back.
I don't think so. He's got a top pair and a gut shot.
I know. He shouldn't, but he's going to.
I don't think he will.
No, he has no pair. What are you talking about? He has no pair and an open-ended straight draw.
Torelli has
No, I meant Dentale.
Oh, Dentale. Oh, yeah, but Torelli's going to bet.
Okay.
He's
That could
top
happen.
pair and a straight draw and the 2 opponents he's against.
Right.
Dentale, he's not going to want Dentale. He's not going to try to get Dentale. Wow.
Right, it checks through.
The turn gets checked around, which is a disaster for Anthony. I don't mind his call on the flop, but I'd like to see a healthy bet here on a blank turn to protect and get value. I checked for fear someone had a better 9 or was trapping, and Dentale does as well. I like Dentale's decision to realize his equity for free, mainly because I think a single bet on the turn won't win this pot often enough.
So I would have bet there in Torelli's spot. And really bad card for
Oh,
Torelli
wow.
on the river.
Really bad card here. Come on, Anthony. Just move all in.
See, that's the problem. He made such a big hand and the pot's so small.
Yeah.
He didn't check raise a flop, and it really killed the action.
Let's see if Torelli can read his soul.
The most possible bets that can go in on the river is 2 bets now. And the pot's small, so it's not going to be that big.
The river is the worst card in the deck for my hand, making me trips. Anthony should lead out here to get value from someone with a 9 and bet big as well, especially since trips can't conceivably fold here. It's just one of those spots where you just call because you just do.
He bets 2,200.
Yeah, well,
Wow!
No, Torelli's hand must be wrong. He must not have the 9 of spades.
Really?
He just went straight up fold
Maybe
there.
he had a read.
But
we gotta ask him.
But Rich has made so many bluffs today in like spots like that where
I'm with ya.
You just can't fold there, and he didn't even think about it.
You think the
we had to have Torelli's hand wrong.
Must have. Okay.
He just didn't even consider it.
Alright, so I'm really flattered that the commentators, David Tuckman and Matt Glantz, both who I know personally, thought this fold was so crazy that the cameras got my cards wrong. I'll do my best to convey my thoughts here about how I made this play and why. First, Anthony gave off a subtle tell, one of the oldest in the book. Looking down at one's chips is almost always a sign of strength, and you can see here he does that when deliberating whether or not to bet. He then pauses for a bit to deliberate, then looks down a second time immediately before betting. Why does this matter? Because I've often argued in my talks that one doesn't necessarily have to choose between math or logic and intuition when making decisions, both in poker and life, but rather they use a combination of both. But one has to understand the relationship between these two to make it work to their advantage. I believe the first part of the decision-making process is intuitive. It always is. When you meet someone, for example, you get a read as to whether or not you like them. Logic only comes after. In this hand, my intuitive read was Anthony was strong. When he bets out 3,000 on the river, I believed his intention was to get value. Now I know from experience that if he's not bluffing, and he's betting more than the size of the pot, that the types of hands he's betting for value are all better than mine. Namely, strong 9s, which have me outkicked, or slow-played straights or full houses. In short, I only beat a bluff, and since my read was that he's not bluffing, I folded. I did it instantly because I didn't want to overthink it. Sometimes when our logical mind overrides what we know to be true inside, we end up making mistakes. It's when you know you can't trust someone, but you convince yourself to go into business with them anyway. In my experience, overriding my intuition is when bad things happen. Finally, let's not confuse intuition with emotion. The former is a strongly rooted belief, where the subconscious mind just understands something that the conscious mind can't explain rationally, whereas the latter is done in a moment of stress, panic, or frustration. In poker, having the confidence to trust one's gut, especially in the big spots, is an important skill to harness if you want to crush it. So does this hand deserve to be in the top 5 most amazing poker hands in history? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for bearing with me on it. And now, for the number 1 most amazing poker hand of all time, I found this one from the Campeonato Nacional Poker Stars TV show at La Sexta in Spain. This hand is truly amazing. Enjoy.
Vicente Asjota de Perejiles.
Suma 300. Vamos.
Las tiras están en 50-100, ha triplicado.
Vamos.
José Manuel, tranquilo, vamos a ver qué hace José Luis, fuera.
Gravitacional.
Pasa un poco para aquí.
Va girando hacia allí.
No, qué un jugador, señor. ¿Qué es eso? Asjota.
Bueno, Madre mía, que Vicente pensaba que ya se habían tirado todos y acaba de enseñar as J.
No.
Y claro, la ha visto el talo. Y ahora Alfredo que se apunta con 2-9. Bueno, Alfredo, pues esto así se las ponían a Fernando VII, que no a Felipe II.
La primera vez que lo veo.
This hand kicks off with a twist. Vincente opens the pot to 300, and thinking that everyone folds, exposes his hole cards. Alfredo, who still hasn't acted yet, calls with 2 9s in the big blind. Vincente's hand is still live, but he'll have to play with it face up. Let's take a flop.
Hombre, la cosa está complicada.
¡Hala! Y coge trucha de 9 y el otro... Madre mía. No, pues Alfredo. ¿Ahora qué?
Pues ya,
Macho,
más
¿ahora
fácil
qué?
no puede tener.
¿Qué va a ser ahora?
Tú sabes lo que tiene.
Ah, lo mismo que yo.
Sí, tírala.
200. ¿Y el otro que lleva la J con el as?
Sube a 600.
Sube no me lo puedo creer, lo estoy viendo. Voy a seguir viéndolo.
Canchas y canchas.
Que tiene las cartas descubiertas, Vicente.
1200. Sube a 1200.
600 más, ¿no?
Esto
se torna...
Yo
quiero ver el comentario de Pastor de esta jugada.
Sí, pues no sé si lo vas a ver, porque ahora mismo yo estoy alucinando.
It's quite amazing that both players flop big hands here, Vincente with top pair and Alfredo with a set. Alfredo now leads out, which, given that his opponent should never be betting because his hand is exposed, makes a lot of sense. Vincente opens the door to putting himself in an impossible spot by raising it to 600. Maybe he's leveling his opponent into 3-betting so he can call. I really have no idea, and this one definitely isn't played using a solver. Alfredo has a clear 3-bet here on the flop. If Vincente is really audacious enough to raise here with his hand exposed, I doubt he's folding to further action. Alfredo makes it 1200, smaller than I'd prefer, but it gets called by Vincente. Let's take a turn.
Esto será estratosférico.
¡Hala! Full para Alfredo, Vicente que coge el trío y bueno, vamos a ver qué pasa.
Tenga picas y vaya con ahí un...
¿Qué habla? 2000.
2-9 serían muy graciosos.
Bueno.
2-9 serían muy graciosos.
Pues sería muy, pero...
2-9, claro, ya nada, ¿no? Vamos tú. Tú verás.
Adiós la luz, aguantando, que es gerundio.
The turn gives Alfredo a full house, making Vincente trip jacks. If there's ever a situation for a leveling war, this is it. Alfredo now leads out 2,000. He really should never be bluffing here, but Vincente also knows that. It's a complete mind screw. It's hard to believe Vincente is going anywhere now that he has hung around and on the flop, and he has actually improved to trips. He calls, and just when you thought the hand couldn't get any more ridiculous, let's take a river.
¡Adiós! ¡Que ha cogido full de gente!
Ya está la que esperaba.
Pero, ya está, bueno, ¿y ahora qué? ¿Alfredo?
Pues... se completa
Pásate.
y no sirve para nada el color.
¿Pasa?
Sí, ligeramente.
Bueno, y ahora Vicente, que lo único que tiene que tener miedo es a póker de doses o a una J y un 9. Claro, va a meter, él tiene full de J 12.
Oh my gosh, what a river. How tilted must Alfredo be when his opponent backdoors a higher full house with his hand exposed? Of course, he has to check at this point. Over to Vincente, who despite almost always having the best hand, should of course check here. How can he ever get called by worse? Remember, his opponent can see his friggin' cards, but Vincente has other plans.
Vicente, ahí va, apuesta 1000. Bueno, y Alfredo inmediatamente...
Oh, you can see the look of disgust on Alfredo's face. He knows his opponent got unbelievably lucky in the most ridiculous of circumstances, but with Vincente having the board locked up and absolutely pot committed, Alfredo has no choice but to fold.
Tiene que tirarse. No,
lo que te queda.
¿Cómo? ¿Cómo?
No puede ser, tío.
¿Pero esto qué es? ¿El sabio Frestón? ¿Ha nublado el entendimiento el mago Frestón de esta criatura de Dios, Alfredo?
Claro.
Claro, gana tú.
¿Pero cómo no va a ganar? ¿Pero esto qué es? ¡Ay! Perdónenme, yo sé que es tarde, pero da igual, tengo que gritar. ¡Ay! ¡Ay! ¿Cómo es posible esto, por el amor?
Le ha jugado una mala pasada ahí.
Pero Alfredo, ¡Alfredo!
Lo mismo si no le llego a tirar así. Bueno,
Pero Alfredo, si le estamos viendo la jugada,
si no
Alfredo.
sale el 2.
Ha nublado, que no son gigantes, al revés, que son molinos.
That's all for me today, guys. Thanks for your attention if you made it this far. Which hand was your favorite? Let me know your thoughts in a comment below. And if you want more analysis from me, be sure to subscribe to this channel so you're always the first to know when awesome content comes your way. And as always, our best content is over at consciouspoker.com, so be sure to head over there now and hop on our newsletter. It's totally free. I send out an exclusive poker tip every week, along with our latest content, inspiring quotes, and more. That's all for me, guys. Thanks for your attention, and I'll see you in the next one.